about setting goals. Setting goals seems like a terribly grandiose thing to do, and writing down what you're hoping to get out of this can also seem quite daunting. At the end of the day, why do you need to write down the fact that you're just going to take a month off booze? That's it. You don't need to write it down. Why would you do that?
I mean, goals. I originally trained as a sports psychologist, and goal setting is such an important part of working with athletes because they set minute goals for every day, every workout, every week, every session, every season. And I think setting goals helps us actually break down what we're going to do about our overall goal. So giving up drink for a month is almost like the broad goal, but actually the sub goals are probably to be doing different things as well, managing our emotions, getting better sleep, getting organised with other things, feeling healthier. um, Writing it down makes it more concrete, and it makes us a bit more accountable, particularly if we share it with other people, whether that's in an online community such as Club Soda, or other support groups you might go to, or friends who are doing this with you.
In the Club Soda, when you sign up, you can fill in a motivational questionnaire, goal setting, and update that each week. Why is that a particularly good method?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, why is motivational questioning a good method?
Well, what you're using in the...
All right, hold on a minute. I'm going to redo this. So in the Club Soda area, you can actually, when you set a goal, you use something called a motivational questionnaire in order to set your goal. Why is that a particularly good way to set your goal?
Well, that comes from a form of counselling called motivational interviewing, and it's helping people understand how motivated they are to achieve something. We're not normally 10 out of 10 motivated. Sometimes we're 5 or 6 out of 10 motivated. We want to do it, but there's part of us that maybe is dragging our heels. And once you sort of put down a score for how motivated you are, you can then work on, well, how could I be a bit more motivated about this? How could I go from a 6 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10?
And you can see how that may vary from week to week. Because if you're perfect and feel the same way every week, you'd be a bit unhuman, really, wouldn't you? And so it's good to know where those changes are. And the questionnaire also asks you what you might do differently next week, or what it was that you did last week that was particularly good. Allows you to track those things, and I think that's far more useful than some arbitrary tracking how many drinks you've had. If you're trying to cut down, actually this says, what is it that you did? How could you repeat that again? Here's a reminder of how that worked. What would you do differently if that situation went wrong for you?
And I think that's really important, because so often people track sort of the outcome, let's say the number of pounds they've lost, or the number of drinks they haven't had or have had if they're keeping a drinks diary, and that's really just the final outcome of all of our behaviours. So actually tracking our behaviours and spending time to record our behaviours that led to that outcome is more important, because that's the stuff we do. A number of drinks exists, but we actually did things in order to achieve that 0 drinks that day. And saying what you did that worked, what you did that didn't work, and then making plans around those is the important thing about changing behaviour.
And I think that's what we find quite powerful about doing that type of checking in. And it also allows you to write stuff down, which just ticking a box doesn't always feel so satisfactory. We also ask you to track your NME scores. So that's your scores around your life, things that you think might change. Part of the reason we do this is sometimes the changes in drinking can be quite subtle. We've already touched on weight, and obviously it's not all going to fall off immediately, unfortunately. And that might take a while to see, but there are some things you can see quicker, but they are subtle, so you do need to take some time to take notice. What sort of things can people expect to see a change in?
I mean, some of the things we include on the tracker are things such as sleep quality or feeling refreshed, productivity, managing moods and emotions, relationships. They're not all things that will necessarily definitely improve, but they are things that are affected by alcohol, even if we don't know it. So I think they're worth monitoring during your month off, because one of the reasons we sort of advocate taking a month off, and we're not preaching lifelong sobriety to anyone, but we're saying take a month off, because then you get a really clear idea of maybe what alcohol has been doing to you, how it's been affecting your life. And then you have far more information to make a decision about what you do at the end of the month. That may be wow, so much has improved that I didn't even know would improve, that this, it's a no-brainer, I'm just not going to drink again. Other things may not have improved because drink wasn't causing them, but you've learned something about yourself as a result of tracking it. So tracking, I think, is important also for motivation, because the more things you see improving, even subtly by, inch by inch, the more motivated you are to carry on. If you fail to stop and recognise change, you may think there is no change because it can be quite small.
And one of the big things that people have been talking about in the first few weeks is around their sleep. Now, I slept loads once I gave up drinking, because it's like my body said, you know what, every time you were tired, you used to pick up a glass of wine. Now you can actually go to sleep. And I used to use it as a treat. So I used to curl up under a duvet and have a little snooze every now and again. Other people are saying it's disrupting their sleep. But again, people are beginning to report that that's also getting better. So it can work both ways, but just knowing that is really important, and knowing which days are good and which days are bad, and seeing how that changes over the course of a month is really important too.
And it helps us to start actually measuring things and quantifying them a bit, because it's very easy to say, oh, my sleep's terrible. But if you go, okay, well, let's start monitoring your sleep and on a 0 to 10. If you actually see that, well, maybe it's 2, but then it's maybe 4, and then it's 5, but then it's 2 again. It stops us kind of making these kind of grand generalised statements that everything's always bad, because actually, some days it's been better. Maybe why was it better? What was different about that day? And it helps us just gather more data about ourselves, so we're more informed about what changes we want to make.
And if you're really into gadgets like me, see here, I've got a Fitbit, you can actually set a baseline for yourself and be able to use some gadgets to measure that as well. I quite enjoy that, because I feel compelled to use a gadget when I've bought it, because it's cost me money. So there we are.